Your child keeps scratching, so you put on the cream. For a while it gets better, but then the itching comes back. And suddenly you're stuck in the same frustrating loop, week after week, wondering what you're missing. Here's something most parents don't realize. Itchy skin in children is rarely just a skin problem. In many cases, the real trigger is sitting right on their plate. In this video, you'll discover 7 hidden food triggers that can cause itchy skin in kids. But more importantly, you'll learn why these foods create that reaction inside your child's body. Because once you understand the why, you can finally stop guessing. This video is for any parent who has tried everything. Every lotion, every detergent change, every hypoallergenic product, and still can't figure out why their child won't stop scratching. Most parents think skin reactions are just a skin issue. Rash? Treat the skin. Itch? Moisturize. But that only treats the symptom, not the source. So here's the real question. Why would something your child eats show up on their skin? Food and skin seem like 2 completely different systems in the body. Or are they? The gut and the skin are deeply connected. Researchers actually call it the gut-skin axis. When a child eats a food their body doesn't tolerate well, the immune system can react. That reaction creates inflammation. And that inflammation doesn't stay in the gut. It travels through the body, and one of the most visible places it shows up is the skin. That's why the cream often doesn't fix the problem. You're putting out the fire on the surface, while the fuel is still burning inside. In fact, a study published in The Lancet found that certain food additives can trigger measurable reactions in children, including behavioral changes and skin symptoms, within hours of eating them. Trigger number 1, dairy. Dairy is one of the most common food triggers for itchy skin in kids. But not always for the reason most parents think. Many parents assume it's a milk allergy. But there's a difference between a true allergy and a sensitivity. Sensitivity is different. Your child can test negative for a milk allergy and still react to dairy on their skin. Here's why. Dairy proteins, especially casein and whey, can trigger low-grade inflammation in sensitive children. That inflammation often shows up as eczema flares, dry patches behind the knees, or persistent itching around the face and neck. Casein is a slow-digesting protein. In some children, it creates an immune response that isn't dramatic enough to look like an allergy, but it's consistent enough to keep the skin inflamed. Here's the clue most parents miss. Watch what happens 12 to 24 hours after your child eats cheese, yogurt, or milk-based snacks. If the skin gets worse the next day, dairy might be playing a role. Trigger number 2, artificial food dyes. Bright-colored snacks, juices, and cereals are everywhere in kids' diets. And many of them contain artificial food dyes, things like red 40, yellow 5, and yellow 6. These dyes were approved for food use decades ago. But here's something most parents don't know. In the European Union, foods containing these dyes are required to carry a warning label stating they may have an adverse effect on activity and attention in children. In the United States, that warning label isn't required. So why can dyes affect the skin? Artificial food dyes are synthetic chemicals derived from petroleum. In sensitive children, they can activate immune cells called mast cells. Mast cells release histamine, the same chemical your body releases during an allergic reaction. Histamine causes itching. So the chain reaction looks like this. Your child eats a brightly colored snack. The dye activates mast cells. Mast cells release histamine. Histamine triggers itching. Your child scratches. You apply cream, and the cycle repeats. A well-known study published in The Lancet in 2007, called the McCann study, linked artificial food colors with increased reactivity in children. This isn't fringe science. It's peer-reviewed research. Trigger number 3, gluten in non-celiac children. You've heard of celiac disease, but there's a less-known condition called non-celiac gluten sensitivity, and it can cause skin reactions in children who test negative for celiac. This is one of the most frustrating triggers for parents because the standard celiac test comes back negative. The doctor says no gluten problem, and yet the child keeps reacting. Parents feel dismissed. They feel crazy. In non-celiac gluten sensitivity, the immune system still mounts a response to gluten proteins. This response can increase intestinal permeability, what researchers call leaky gut. When the gut lining becomes more permeable, partially digested food particles enter the bloodstream. The immune system attacks them. That immune activity shows up as inflammation, including on the skin. A 2013 review in Nutrients confirmed non-celiac gluten sensitivity as a distinct condition with real, measurable symptoms, including dermatological reactions. You're not imagining it. The test just wasn't designed to catch this. Trigger number 4. Histamine. Histamine isn't just released by your body during allergic reactions. It's also found in certain foods. And in children with low histamine tolerance, eating these foods is like pouring gasoline on a fire. The tricky part? Many of these foods are considered healthy. We're talking about tomatoes, spinach, avocado, fermented foods like yogurt and soy sauce, and even leftovers that have been sitting in the fridge. Some children have lower levels of an enzyme called DAO, diamine oxidase, the enzyme responsible for breaking down histamine in the gut. When histamine isn't broken down properly, it accumulates. And excess histamine causes itching, hives, and skin flushing. This is why your child might react to a healthy meal of tomato pasta with spinach and feel perfectly fine after a plain chicken and rice dinner. A 2007 review in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition by Mainz and Novak documented histamine intolerance as a real, underdiagnosed condition, especially in children. Key sign to watch: reactions that seem random and don't follow a clear pattern. High histamine meals create inconsistent symptoms, which is why parents struggle to connect the dots. Trigger number 5. Preservatives and additives. Beyond dyes, there's another category of food chemicals that flies under the radar: preservatives. Specifically sulfites, BHA, and BHT, found in dried fruits, packaged snacks, processed meats, and many breakfast cereals. These preservatives are designed to extend shelf life. But in some children, they extend something else: the inflammatory response that keeps skin irritated for days. Sulfites can inhibit certain enzymes in the body and trigger mast cell activation, the same pathway we talked about with food dyes. In sulfite-sensitive children, even small amounts can cause skin flushing, itching, and eczema flares. BHA and BHT are synthetic antioxidants. Animal studies have shown they can disrupt immune function. While human research in children is still developing, clinical observations consistently show skin improvements when these are removed from sensitive children's diets. The hidden sources: dried mango, raisins, fruit juice, deli meat, and packaged crackers. These are lunchbox staples. What to look for on labels: sodium metabisulfite, potassium bisulfite, BHA, BHT. Trigger number 6. Eggs. Eggs are one of the top 8 allergens, but egg sensitivity, without a full allergy, is far more common and far less diagnosed. Here's what makes egg sensitivity particularly sneaky. Eggs are in almost everything: baked goods, pasta, breaded foods, sauces, even some vaccines. A child with egg sensitivity is getting low-level exposure constantly, and their skin never fully clears. Egg white proteins, particularly ovomucoid and ovalbumin, are highly reactive in sensitive immune systems. Even when there's no anaphylactic response, these proteins can trigger chronic low-grade inflammation that manifests as persistent eczema, itchy patches, or skin that never fully heals. The pattern to watch: skin that improves slightly on weekends when kids eat differently, but flares up during the school week. School lunches and snacks are often loaded with egg-containing products. Egg sensitivity can also be dose-dependent, meaning a small amount causes no visible reaction, but daily accumulation crosses the threshold and triggers a flare. Trigger number 7. Salicylates. This last trigger is the one most parents have never heard of, and it might be the most important one if your child reacts to seemingly random, natural foods. Salicylates are natural chemicals found in fruits, vegetables, spices, and even some medications like aspirin. They are not artificial. They are not processed. They are in apples, berries, grapes, tomatoes, and most fruit juices. So how can something natural be causing your child's skin to flare? Salicylates block a specific enzyme pathway, COX-1, that regulates inflammation. In children with salicylate sensitivity, this blockage causes the body to produce more inflammatory compounds, including those that trigger itching and skin reactions. This is why some children seem to react to healthy diets rich in fruits and vegetables. Parents add more fruit, thinking they are helping, and the skin gets worse. High salicylate foods, apples, berries, grapes, tomatoes, dried fruits, fruit juice, most spices, and mint-flavored products. The key sign: your child does better on a simpler, blander diet, and worse when you try to eat healthier. Salicylate sensitivity was documented in clinical research as a real contributor to chronic skin conditions in children, and it responds well to a structured low salicylate elimination protocol. What to do next? The pattern-first approach. Now you know the 7 triggers, but knowing the list isn't enough. The mistake most parents make is cutting out everything at once, which creates nutritional gaps, family stress, and no clear answers because you can't tell which food was actually the problem. So what's the right approach? And how do you do this safely, without harming your child's growth or turning every meal into a battle? Start with observation, not elimination. Before removing anything, track for 7 days. Write down what your child eats and when the itching is worst. Look for a pattern. Why this matters: the delay between eating a trigger food and the skin reaction can be 12 to 48 hours. Without tracking, you'll never connect the right food to the right reaction. Don't guess. Track it. Download the free food and mood diary below. And start spotting your child's triggers today. Hit like, subscribe, and share this video with a parent who's struggling to connect the dots between food and itchy skin. Remember, relief starts with understanding the hidden triggers your child is eating every day.